What's an educated mama?
Hello, I'm Ryan Jordan, and welcome to The Educated Mama. During this podcast, we will learn from experts, entrepreneurs, creators, and leaders who are also mothers responsible for all the things. Let's celebrate women, learn a few mom hacks, and discuss the beautiful mess of motherhood. We're all learning together, right? Today's guest is Samantha Ettus. Sam has devoted her career to advocating and supporting thousands of women in the pursuit of their dreams. In Sam's quest to help women achieve financial independence, she launched Park Place Payments. Since earning her undergraduate and MBA degrees from Harvard, Sam has been a best-selling author of 5 books. Sam also wrote one of my favorite books to gift to moms called The Pie Life, a guilt-free recipe for success and satisfaction. She's also a speaker and a host of a nationally syndicated call-in radio show, as well as an internet talk show called Obsessed TV. Sam makes regular national television appearances, and she has been featured and quoted in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, just to name a few. She has also created a podcast called What's Her Story with Amy Nelson. Sam is active in causes relating to women and girls and is co-founder of the Los Angeles Women's Collective, aimed at supporting women to run for office nationally and win. She serves on the advisory board of the Forbes School of Business and Technology. And most importantly, Sam is also the mother to 3 amazing children. Let's meet our guest. Hi, Sam. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Ryan. I love seeing you. It's so much fun whenever we get together. So I always see you at conferences, and now there are no conferences anymore. So I'm glad that we have this excuse.
Me too. I remember meeting you at the biggest baby shower. I think that was the first one. You were hosting a panel there. And I remember meeting you thinking, this woman is so dynamic and such a powerhouse and so kind. Like you just are a people person. And it's so fun to meet women who are mothers who are just kind people.
Isn't it funny when you hear people's impressions? Because like my first impression of you was like you had it all together. You were a badass, like running something. You were beautiful, just like super organized. And it's just so nice, like sometimes to hear people's impressions of you because
Yeah.
I think we're harder on ourselves than we need to be.
Oh, absolutely. Because I wasn't feeling all put together. I was breastfeeding at a conference for the first time and I felt like I was sleep deprived. So thanks. I'll take it. All right. So we're going to jump right in. And I want to hear all about your newest venture, Park Place Payments. Tell me more.
Well, it's so crazy, Ryan. It's not even new anymore. I mean, I still call it my new venture, but it's now been over 2 years, maybe 3 almost. So basically, when you alluded to the Pie Life, which was my last book, and when I was on a book tour for the Pie Life, I met so many women who had left the workforce, wanted to get back in, and found no opportunities. And so a lot of them were stuck selling makeup and skincare and essential oils to their friends and not even making martini money.
Mm.
And I thought, what's going on here? And when I dug into it, I found that 98% of people who sell for multi-level marketing companies like those actually lose money. They don't even break even. At the same time, about 10 years ago, I was at a conference that had the top 20 sales guys in the credit card processing industry, which is an industry most people don't know much about. But basically, any business from like a dentist office to a hair salon that accepts credit cards has to go through this middleman between American Express, MasterCard, Visa, and the actual business. And today the middleman is 30,000 white men for the most part. So something clicked and I was like, hold on. What if I could train these women who would be selling, to their friends makeup or clothing or whatever? What if I could train them to sell a financial services product which not only would help small businesses, but also would boost their resumes because suddenly they were an account executive at a financial services company. So I spent 2018 testing this, and I went to 6 different cities to see if women with zero background in financial services could be successful selling it. And based on their success, I raised an angel round of money in 2019, and that enabled us to hire our first full-time people. And now we have 500 account executives across the country, and they sell credit card processing to their kids' pediatrician and their favorite bookstore and all the businesses in their towns. And it's all recurring revenue. So over time, they just keep building their portfolio of businesses, and it's kind of like life insurance for them. And I love it so much, and it's definitely the best thing I've ever done professionally. It's been awesome. Yeah.
That's incredible. And I think it's so empowering for women because I know I was raised to not talk about finances, right? That was always kind of the elephant in the corner. And if a woman talked about finances, she was a little bit brash or rude, right?
Right.
And now, I feel at least, if you're a woman in this day and age, if you're not taking accountability for your finances and you don't have information, it's not as empowering. I feel so good that I know exactly what's coming in and going out every month. I mean, every day, basically.
So critical. I know it's so important for your financial freedom and just freedom in life, right? Because if you don't have control over your money and you don't make financial decisions, it's really hard to have the ability to make choices in your life. And I see it every day with so many people who get stuck in bad relationships or in difficult circumstances in their life. And when they don't have their own money, they're so limited in what they can do. And then we forget that like the little people in our homes are also looking to us as examples. And so when I now host a podcast, but when I used to host a radio show, people would call in and with their problems. And a lot of times they would say like, well, what do I do if if I can, I'm with this guy, but he doesn't let me work or something like that. And I would say, well, what would you do if your daughter came home one day and brought home a guy who wouldn't let her work? And she goes, oh my God, that would never happen. That would be horrible. And I said, well, that's what they see in your house every day. And so if you won't do it for yourself, do it for your kids who are watching everything you do. And, I personally feel like financial independence is something that was bred into me. I was really lucky. So my mom was a huge feminist. And when I was, 8 years old or 11, between that age, I was in our apartment building in New York City where I grew up. And we ran into a family friend of ours. And she said, Mrs. Riles hates her husband, but she has no money of her own. So she can never leave him, never be like Mrs. Riles. And it's like kind of a crass way to deliver a message, but it really stuck with me. And ever since I've just been so passionate about women keeping their financial independence. So it's funny because when I started this company, people assume I'm talking about credit card processing all day. And so they'll be like, this is so unsexy. You used to be on the Today Show all the time. And now you're talking about credit card processing. And I'm like, no. I'm talking about women's financial independence. And there is nothing more important or exciting to me. And so it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done. Yeah.
I think it's empowering and amazing. And thank you for creating something to give space to women to do that, because essentially they're their own boss when they're working with your company. Yes, they have advisors to go to, but they're pretty much running their own business.
They are. And then there's a second layer of it, which is like they feel like they're really helping their community because they're helping Main Street businesses. Most people, if you ask them about their payment provider, they're like, oh, I do it with my bank. And most people are way overpaying in fees. And there's all these hidden fees in their statements and they're hard to decipher and they have really bad customer service. They're on a 1-800 number call all the time. And like for us, we have white glove customer service and we have one rate card. We don't negotiate. We give the lowest rate from the beginning. And I think just those kinds of features allow us to help small businesses. And Main Street is the essence of a community and essence of a thriving community. So they're able to really contribute and give back to their communities while earning money.
Amazing. Let's talk about this article that came out about paying women to be mothers. I saw you wrote back an opinion article as well. I would just love to hear more of your thoughts on that. Do you think really, that mothers should be paid for mothering?
I really don't. I mean, I feel so strongly about this. I think it's a really dangerous place for us to put women. I think if we're aiming for an egalitarian society at work, right? If you're aiming for pay equity and you're aiming for women to have the same opportunities as men, you can't then sort of talk on both sides of your mouth. You can't want that for women and want them to have equality at work, but not have equality at home. And so you can't have equality at work without equality at home. So the language we use is so important. And that's why we've made so many great strides in calling maternity leave is no longer called maternity leave. It's parental leave. Like those are huge, really important differences because if you have a husband in a sort of traditional heterosexual family, if you have a husband who goes back to work on day 2 and a mother who has 3 months of maternity leave, then that guy is like hundreds of hours behind in parenting. And if someone doesn't learn how to change a diaper or be alone with the baby from the beginning, it's never going to equal out, or go to the doctor's appointments and all that kinds of stuff. So I think it's so important. When I saw the Marshall Plan for Moms, which is what you're alluding to,
Yes.
I was so horrified because yes, we all agree. We all agree on the problem. It's such a problem that women have been hit harder in this pandemic professionally than men have. It's a really huge problem. The number one reason this happened is because more women are in service positions like waitressing and caretaking. And so that is why women were hit harder. However, it's also a truth that in many families, there's not equality in the home. And so a lot of the homeschooling and the supervising Zoom schooling is falling onto the mom's shoulders. But that speaks to a larger societal issue, which is we need to have equal marriages. We need to have women who have higher expectations for their own lives and themselves. And a lot of that comes with having a career. And so if we're suddenly suggesting that women get paid to be home, that's yet another reason for a spouse to say, you stay home, at least you're getting paid for it. And that's a very dangerous place to be. So our language is so important here. I went to the Marshall Plans for Moms website and saw they had a definition of a mother, and it was like nanny, chauffeur. I was like, what century are we in? Like, you don't want your boss who's deciding between a promotion for you and a promotion for the guy next to you. You don't want him thinking of you that way. That's not okay. And in my eyes, that's what's a parent. That's called parenting. In fact, my husband was so enraged by the article that when he read it, he now jokes, like if he's going to pick up the kids or whatever, he'll be like, how much do I get paid for this? Like he jokes about it. And so anyway, so Amy Nelson and I, who's my co-host on What's Her Story podcast, we wrote an op-ed in Newsweek about it. And I think we're all on the same page about the problem. And it's just a matter of getting on the same page about the solution. And we know what the solution is. It's universal childcare, paid leave, and it's pay equity. And when we have those three things, we won't have to have these discussions anymore.
I couldn't agree more. So many times people say, my partner meets me 50-50. I'm like, mine doesn't. Mine meets me 100-100. Like if you don't wake up every day meeting each other at 100% of what you can give for the day, then someone's always going to keep doing more work than the other, and it's going to be unequal. So it's like so many times
I
people
love that, Ryan. I love that. I'm going to start quoting you on that. That's amazing.
Okay. I just think that way. For me, it's like, when I married my spouse, I thought to myself, who isn't going to be afraid to cook dinner? And he's a better cook than I am. And who is going to be changing diapers with me and getting up?
That's the thing, is like so many women act like we're lucky. I'm like, it's not luck. I would never marry someone who wouldn't help and wouldn't do what I do. Like, I don't even understand this mentality of like, wow, it's not like you get married to someone, you're like, wow, turns out they were a good dad, or like, turns out they know how to do dishes. Like, I don't even understand this mentality. I grew up with a dad who sewed buttons and ironed shirts. And so it never occurred to me that my own husband would do the same.
I did too. My dad was also a girl dad. And I mean, he would get up and do everything with us. I would see him helping my mom with everything and making sure of things. So to me, that was just part of life. And so I think unless you have a role model like that in your life, perhaps that isn't the route that you choose. But I'm seeing women struggle like crazy right now because they don't have partners that meet them at 100%. So yeah. So I would love to segue into the pie life, because that's also about work-life balance. And I would just love to know, what inspired you to write this book? Was there a moment in your life that was like, I need people to know and I need to help people? Tell me, what was that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I was so frustrated by seeing so many of my peers, whether they were people who'd gone to Harvard Business School with me or moms in my community who felt like they had to choose between having a family and having a job or having a career. And it never occurred to me that I had to make that choice. And I was kind of wondering why all of these women were feeling like they had to make that choice, but I never felt that way. And so when I dug into it, I recognized that we were, kind of all part of this generation, like the Anne Marie Slaughter and negativity of like, women can have it all. I don't know if you remember that cover story in the Atlantic. And I felt like it was such an irresponsible story because it's such a negative view of how how women's lives should be led. And I felt like, what if I could offer a positive framework to women on how to manage their lives? And I'd always managed my life in this kind of sliced way. I would like lie in bed at night thinking about the different slices of my life. And so I just kind of put it together into this pie, which I also, I did tons of research and just talked to so many women. And in talking to successful women, I found that their lives were divided into 7 categories, and those were their family or their kids, their relationship or their quest to find one, their career, their health, their community, their friends, and their hobbies. And it didn't mean that they were spending equal time, obviously, in each of those slices. It just meant that they thought of those slices as all existing in their pies. And by thinking of them as existing, you're giving yourself permission to go out on date night or to, go for a walk with friends or a margarita with your friend. Like, you're not feeling guilty because you realize that's part of a full life. And when I interviewed women for the book, whether it was Sally Krawcheck, from Elevate, or it was Stacey Bendet, who started Allison Olivia, or Gail King, what I found is that they all had 2 things in common. One is that they spent no time feeling guilty. And the second was that they spent time in all of those slices. And that was the key to a really fulfilling life. And I felt like if women had a very positive framework for how to think about managing their lives, then they would stay in the workforce. Then they would know that life is going to be messy. I mean, the reason I love the pie analogy is because the most delicious pies are not the store-bought perfect looking ones. They're like the messy, gooey, dripping over the side ones. And that's how your life is supposed to look. And, we've all met the mom who left the workforce because she didn't want to miss like one of her kids' first steps. And she missed that with her first kid, let's say. And then she's at soccer practice with her first child and misses the second child anyway. So I think it's like, we think sometimes if we're just going to be moms and wives, we'll be the best there are. Or if we're just going to be working and working out, we can have like the best body and we'll focus on our social life later. Like, that's not how life is. It's meant to be rich and full and enjoyed. And that also means you're going to drop balls and life is going to be messy. And that's okay, because there's nothing you can do to make perfection. Every day is a series of highs and lows. Even your best days are going to have low moments. And that's just called life.
I couldn't agree more. And I always tell, mom friends that I talk to, your best day today is not going to be your best day for tomorrow. And if you have a bad moment, that doesn't mean it's a bad day. It's a bad moment.
Yes, it always kills me when I'm at a kid's, or when my kids were little, but we'd be at a kid's birthday party and one kid would have a tantrum and their parent would say, "Oh, Johnny's just having a really bad day. We're going home." And I would think, that poor kid, like, it's only 11 a.m. Maybe they'll be fine in 2 minutes, probably, and I think that mentality of like a day is ruined, it's like, or oh, it's a bad year or bad week. It's even, I feel really strongly that when people were like, "Oh, good riddance 2020," and then like the first week of 2021 was like the siege on Capitol Hill. So I just think that you don't want to tie happiness to time. And it's very dangerous to label things bad weeks, bad years, bad days. And so I just call them bad moments and move on.
Yeah, I'm the same way with that, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the mom guilt. I know that a lot of moms feel this guilt, and I love how you made the point of these women that you interviewed didn't have that. It wasn't of service to their life, and it's so much easier said than done. I can wake up today and say, mom guilt doesn't service me, and I'm choosing what I'm committed to creating today, which is joy or peace or whatever that is. But inevitably, when I get to the end of the week, I can't help but feel the feeling of like, FOMO. Like, there's this fear of missing out, sometimes JOMO, this joy of missing out, these things. What do you think is the best way to approach this as a working mother who is proud of the work that she does and also misses her kids? And then when she's with her children, she may miss some parts of work. So tell me, how do you balance that?
My personal belief about guilt is that, you're not going to eliminate it completely. However, if you have the goal of being present wherever you are, it's hard to feel guilty. So if you're with your kids and you're not checking your phone every 5 seconds and you're really listening to them and paying attention to them, then when you go back to doing work, you're not going to feel guilty because you gave everything you had to your children when you were with them. When you're at work, your kids aren't winning because half of your mind is somewhere else and you're worrying about them, right? So, but if you give 100% to work, then you can let go of that guilt because you're doing your best when you're there. Similarly, when you're out to dinner with a friend, when we used to go out to dinner before the pandemic, when that happened, you're out to dinner with a friend. If you have your phone on the table and you keep checking it, you're not really doing a service to your friend. Might as well just stay home because you're not present. But if you're with your friend only 2 hours a month and you're really focusing on them and having a very present conversation, then you shouldn't feel guilty that you're not spending more time with them. And I think just bringing your full self, as you said, your 100% of you to everything you do eliminates most of your guilt.
Great advice. That is such great advice, because anytime we are present in the moment, truly present in the moment, we're not even thinking about anything else. We're enjoying the experience called life. And I think many of us spend a lot of our time thinking about what's about to happen, or maybe what did happen and how we could have corrected that or done better.
That's a great point. Okay, so here are my 2 quotes that I came up with that I use. One is, don't live life in the past lane. And my kids now recite that to me all the time. Like if I'm upset about something, like, Mom, don't live life in the past lane. It's really funny. So they're always spitting that back at me. And then the other thing is, don't worry about something that hasn't happened yet, because it does nothing. And I say this to my kids all the time too. If they're worried about a test or whatever, I'm like, let's not worry about what hasn't happened yet. Let's just move forward and think about what we're doing right now, and we'll deal with it.
Incredible. I love it. So I would love to know about being the founder of a company. When somebody takes that leap of faith, and I definitely call it a leap of faith, because anyone who started a company, I mean, I haven't met any woman yet who's like, I'm starting a company. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to succeed right now. Like, I have no fear, right? So the best advice you have for founders of a company, and most female founders start, as a founder of a small business or a small venture or a small idea, and it grows larger and scales bigger. So what is your best advice for founders, female founders?
Oh, goodness. I'm still so in the thick of it that I feel like my advice in a year will be different than it is today. But today I would say it's hiring smartly and surrounding yourself by really great people and I hire for attitude more than experience, because if you have one negative person, it literally spoils the whole bunch.
Oh, Sam, I am right there with you right now with that. And I learned that lesson pretty fast of like, attitude is everything. And if you have one person on your team who brings negative energy, that can seep into everything and literally rent space in your brain.
It's so true. And so I think that's one thing. I've been raising money, and I would say that that's like, I'm not good at it. Like, I don't enjoy it. It makes me uncomfortable. Like Amy, my co-host in the podcast, is like, she's amazing at raising money. Like, it's just not my thing. Like, I really enjoy working with all of our account executives. I really enjoy building our business and creating new relationships and talking to the press and doing all that stuff. But I've always, I think, had an issue, like just going after, I think because it's such a male dominated world, the world of raising money, it just takes a lot out of you. So I would say that that's something that I didn't expect when I got into it. I just didn't have any sense of what that would be like and how much time it would take. And, but there's so much of what I do that I love. And I do personally, I love to sell things. Like, I was the kid who like loved the lemonade stand, like way past when it was socially acceptable to have a lemonade stand. I was like begging my friends to have them, and they were like, no, we've grown out of that. Thank you. But like, I just love selling things. So I think it's super fun that like every day we can measure our sales, and I'm really excited about that. And so I love building a company, and I love growing a company. I think I'm very much, I'm impatient about our success. So I'm constantly wanting like to get to the next stage in terms of our success, because I know it will change so many people's lives. And so I just want us to get there so badly. And, I have to say, like, I love what I'm doing. And every day I like, I'm excited to do it. Like, there's no day where I'm like, oh, I dread going to work. Like, I really enjoy what I'm doing. And I think a big part of it is like, you have to find your passion. And for me, it's like, my passion is financial independence for women. It doesn't mean my passion is talking about payments, but that's the gateway to creating financial independence for women. And I think that's an important thing to decipher. Like, if you love to sell, do you have to then love the pharmaceutical pill you're selling? I don't know, right? Like, I think so much of advice that we get all the time is like, you have to be passionate about what you're doing. And I think that can be taken to such an extreme. I think it's really important to realize, like, you're passionate about building, or you're passionate about working with people. It doesn't have to be a specific thing that you're selling that you're passionate about necessarily. You can find a way to be passionate about a lot of things. So,
And the things that you're not passionate about, the best advice I ever got was hire your weakness. There are things with my company that I just, no matter what I do, it feels like a drag to me.
yeah.
And there's parts that light me up on fire. And those parts that feel heavy to me, I like accounting. Like, I love looking at my books, but I don't want to be the one that manages QuickBooks.
Oh my
So
gosh, same with me. I'm the exact same way. Like, I have a bookkeeper, CFO. Like, I just do not, that's not
yes,
my thing. Like, I don't enjoy that. Yes, I have an MBA, but that's not my jam. Like, that's not
yes,
fun for me.
yes. But
So
I
I
will never give
completely
up.
agree with you. Yes.
Yeah, it's like, hire your weaknesses.
Yeah.
So I just have one last question for you. I want to know, Sam, what's next for you on your adventure in life of parenting and being a business owner and a speaker and a host and all these dynamic things. What's next?
Well, I mean, on the parenting front, I now have a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 10-year-old, which is like hard to believe that, like, I have such older kids. I mean, obviously now we spend every second together. We're in California where, I mean, we've literally gone out to dinner like 3 times in over a year. Like, we just don't, we're like hermits. So we're all together all the time. I have my son, my 10-year-old's the only one who actually has in-person schools. So I feel like, I've definitely had a lot of like quality time with my family this year, which has been awesome. And I'm also like very aware for them of like what they've lost during the pandemic. So I'm excited for them to be able to get back to a full schedule and have a normalcy in their lives where they're not only seeing their siblings and their family, like their parents. I think that's a really hard way to go through 7th and 9th grade. So I worry a lot about that in terms of just making sure that they get back to normalcy soon. So that's what's on my mind a lot with parenting. And then in terms of my business, like, I'm just super excited to grow. We're going to probably get to 1,300 account executives by the end of this year. Yeah. If any of your listeners want to join us, we train people with zero background for free, and they just take our course online and then they join our team, and we have ongoing training all the time. And we've really created a community of people. 95% of them are women, 5% men. But people from all walks of life and all across the country. And then I'm really excited about my podcast, which is called What's Her Story with Sam and Amy on iHeart. Every week we interview one remarkable woman, from Abby Wambach to Ariana Huffington to Melinda Gates and Gloria Steinem. We've had really incredible guests, and we really try to tease out their untold stories. And so, yeah, that's what's really keeping me busy right now.
Well, I'm excited. I'm going to be listening, and then I'm going to be calling you in a couple of years because my kids are only 6 and 4, and saying, your daughter is a dynamic baker. How did she want to do this? Or your daughter is an activist, or your son is going to sleepaway camp. And how did you handle that emotionally? I'm going to be calling you, Sam.
So true. Yeah. So you can call me for any question. You can text me anytime. I know it sounds weird, but I love parenting. Like, I love learning how to be a better parent. I love like just constantly thinking about parenting. So I'm always like, send me any questions. I think it's really fun. I love answering all parenting questions.
Thank you. I love parenting too. It's the best.
Yeah.
So great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I've had so much fun with you.
Thank you, Ryan. You're such an excellent interviewer. This was awesome.
Thanks so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode and you had some great aha moments. I am so passionate about empowering women, and I can't thank you enough for your support. If you know an inspiring mama or you are an inspiring mama, send them our way. Be sure to tune in every Wednesday, and please like, follow, and subscribe to The Educated Mama. Write a review, leave us a comment, share this podcast with your friends. I'm Ryan Jordan, founder and CEO of Educated Nannies. You got this, mama.